People here we've spoken to this afternoon, though, seem to be coming to you because they're very angry. They're very angry about the state of the country. Do you think that's what it's about?
As they should be. As they should be. You know, the reopening of the debate around the, well, they call it the grooming gang scandal, but it's not. It's the mass rape scandal. I just think people ask themselves, what has happened to our country? How could this possibly have happened? Why did everybody want to cover it up? Why has there been no full public inquiry? People are angry about that, yes, and they're right to be. Absolutely right to be. They're also angry economically. We are getting poorer. You know, if you look at the last 8 quarters, GDP per capita is falling in 6 of them. And it coincides with a period of record net legal migration. Mass immigration not only makes it tough for young people to get a house, not only makes it very difficult to see a GP, not only makes our roads and infrastructure struggle to cope, it's making us poorer. And I think the anger isn't directed at the Labour or Conservative parties. I think people increasingly regard them as a uni party. So you're right, they're coming to us because they're angry, but they're not coming to us to stick 2 fingers up to the establishment. They're coming to us because they think we've got the courage to do what's necessary to turn this around.
But what do you plan to do with that? I mean, what's your dream scenario for 2025?
2025, it's to build the structure of the party. You know, and since really August of last year, we've tried with nothing to build branch structure, to put in place a very rigorous, and I mean extremely rigorous, vetting procedure for candidates at all levels, because that was the big failing.
When Nigel Farage agrees to an interview, there's usually a sense that something explosive is about to happen. The kind of moment that shakes the political class and sends commentators rushing to keep up. So when Kuenssberg revealed he would be her guest, viewers were already expecting sparks. And in truth, the Reform UK leader fully delivered, producing the sort of raw, headline-grabbing exchange that feels increasingly rare in British politics. If you're enjoying this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Dark Britain, because astonishingly, more than 98% of people watch our videos without ever hitting the follow button, even though subscribing doesn't cost a thing. Kuenssberg was visibly under strain as Nigel Farage pushed back, and it showed on her face, despite her well-earned reputation for tough forensic questioning and meticulous preparation. This time, however, she was facing Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, and he seemed entirely comfortable deflecting every challenge sent his way. The moment that really cut through came when she challenged him on the future of Britain's steel and aluminium industries. And what followed between Nigel Farage and Kuenssberg became one of those rare interview moments people will still be debating long after the cameras stop rolling.
Jonathan Reynolds, and with him his opposite number, Andrew Griffith from the Conservatives. It's been a momentous 24 hours, hasn't it?
It has been a significant.
And Andrew, how do you see this?
Yeah, look, it's been a really big week, and a lot of people will be very uncertain, still wanting to know what the future looks like.
Okay, well, plenty for us to talk about with you two later in the programme. Nigel Farage is here too, the leader of Reform UK, who's arguing for the state to take full control now. His pal Donald Trump has told Russia to get moving on a ceasefire with Ukraine, but Russia tells us it won't be rushed.
We do not want a ceasefire for just to make it spectacular gesture, to show it publicly or for the media. We need full-scale settlement, once and forever.
Morning. Our team at the desk this week for the next hour. Gary Smith, head of the GMB union. Some of your members were on the site in Scunthorpe yesterday. Sir Andy Street now, the former Conservative Mayor of the West Midlands, and before that the boss of John Lewis. And Stephanie Flanders, economic giant brain and journalist at Bloomberg. Welcome to you all. Let's start, as ever, by what's making the news this morning. And no surprise.
For anyone who hasn't been following the story, the UK has just held an emergency parliamentary vote to assume control of British Steel, a company owned by the Chinese firm Jingye. This dramatic step came after Jingye announced plans, to close the final 2 remaining blast furnaces, a decision that would have effectively brought an end to primary steelmaking in the UK. The company claimed that continuing to run the plant was financially unsustainable and argued that shutting it down was the only sensible option. Nigel Farage, however, was having none of it, openly accusing the Chinese-owned Jingye Group of exaggerating or inventing its losses in order to push through its own strategic objectives.
Look, I am pleased that the government have acted. I do wonder if Tyson and I had not been there on Tuesday, whether they would have done, but they have. Lying about everything.
Laura Kuenssberg challenged Nigel Farage on what evidence he had to support such a grave allegation. Nigel Farage responded, "Call it intuition if you want. But why do you think the trade unions stepped in yesterday morning to block China? They were worried about industrial sabotage." Kuenssberg attempted to trap him, implying he was making irresponsible claims without solid proof and accusing him of fueling dangerous assumptions. Nigel Farage hit back decisively, saying, "This isn't a private company. I'm sorry, but there's no such thing as a genuinely private company in China. That simply isn't how the system operates."
That if you're loyal to him, he's loyal to you. And that's what friendships are based on.
And is his friend Elon Musk now your friend, and is he going to give you millions of pounds?
Well, that's a real question, isn't it? Now, forget about $100 million being talked about in the newspapers.
He going to give you money?
That is for the birds.
Is he going to give you money?
He may well do. But it's got to be legal. He's got to be comfortable with it. He may well give us money. Whether he does or not, I'll tell you what he gives us. With huge numbers of young people, he makes us look cool.
Is the reason you hope he's going to give you money, is that why you don't want to criticise him?
I think I've made it perfectly clear that I don't agree with everything he stands for. But I do believe in free speech. I think he's a hero. And I said that well before any potential money was offered.
When Laura Kuenssberg pressed Nigel Farage once more for concrete evidence, he responded bluntly, "I am absolutely convinced they purchased British Steel with the sole intention of closing it." Laura Kuenssberg continued to probe, asking, "If you get the nationalisation you're hoping for, and the cost climbs from 1 billion to 2, 3, or even 4 billion, is there a point where you would admit this has gone too far?" "Isn't it worth the cost?" Laura Kuenssberg asked. Nigel Farage responded, "There's no reason at all why we can't make our own steel. There's no reason we can't produce aluminium or handle our own refining. There's no reason we're incapable of doing any of this." The BBC presenter pushed back, saying, "That still doesn't answer what I asked." Once the interview ended, the reaction was swift. Viewers flooded social media to share their frustration with Laura's performance. Many were distinctly unimpressed by her approach and openly criticised the BC host for the way she conducted the exchange.
Good evening. This is a very sad story. It's the story of British steel manufacturing. We go back half a century to the early 1970s. We were producing about 30 million tonnes a year of primary steel. You know, the stuff we use in tanks and warships, construction, and very much else. Since then, the industry in terms of jobs has declined by over 90%. And we're now, in terms of primary steel, just got 2 blast furnaces left up in Scunthorpe, the ones in South Wales, of course, going through the process of closing down pretty much as we speak. And we're now producing 2-3 million tonnes of steel every year. Is this because we don't use steel anymore? No, we're using as much, if not more, steel than we ever did. We're just not making it here. And the primary cause of our problem are insane energy prices because of net zero policies adopted by the last few governments. Our industrial electricity is the most expensive of any country in the world, and that puts us at a massive handicap. The other big problem has been China. China flooded the market with steel just a few years ago, massively overproducing, selling much of it at a loss, but in doing so, actually shutting out many other of the Western manufacturers. And I used to work in that industry and I know a fair bit about it. Well, a couple of years ago, we sold what was left of British Steel to a Chinese company, and lo and behold, they are now demanding a vast amount of money to build electric arc furnaces. Well, that's all well and good, but what an electric arc does is it takes secondary steel and it recycles it. And yes, it produces steel, but the problem is it can't be used for the kind of military hardware that I talked about earlier. The other problem with electric arc furnaces is they use not coal, but vast amounts of electricity, and I've explained that problem already. So I wonder, can the steel industry, or can actually any heavy manufacturing now survive in our country? Give me your thoughts, farage@gbnews.com.
When Nigel Farage talks, he doesn't merely make noise, he sends shockwaves through the political scene. His latest sit-down with Laura Kuenssberg was impossible to overlook. Almost immediately, viewers poured onto social media, slamming Laura's gotcha-style questioning and arguing she failed to grasp the significance of safeguarding Britain's steel industry. Many described her interview technique as muddled, off-topic and dull, with some urging her to revisit older interviews to see how it should be done. 3 Reform UK candidates were later dropped over offensive remarks, but the party rejected accusations of extremism, emphasising stricter measures on illegal immigration and a one-in, one-out system for legal migrants. The National Education Union also attacked Reform UK, branding it racist and far-right, and vowing to campaign against its candidates. NOI leaders criticised Farage, dismissing him as a pound-shop Donald Trump, though they stopped short of directly labelling him or the party racist. Despite the criticism, Farage and Reform UK remain unapologetic, continuing to promote their agenda and defend their positions.
In the country passed a motion branding Reform UK far-right racists, and they further voted to pledge union funds to fight Nigel Farage's party in elections. Well, first of all, before we get into what I think is a union far outstripping its remit, why is this trade union business?
Well, a lot of trade unions, I'm thinking of the Doctors' Union, the British Medical Association, the BMA, a lot of trade unions wade into this sort of thing. I think what's most worrying in this case is that these are teachers, and we already know that anti-reform sentiment seeps into the classroom. It seeps in at all sorts of opportunities, particularly at a time when elections are coming. I know this from talking to my own children and many other parents besides, and many young people who report back on teacher bias in the classroom. You know, the odd sneery word here or there, the odd smear here or there. I mean, this campaign to tarnish reform and its supporters as far-right and or racist is so lazy and so hackneyed and so completely false. And yet, unfortunately, the party's political opponents know that it is effective. You know, those labels are deeply unpleasant and extremely corrosive, and it is a real problem for the party leadership and has been for a long time. And I can guarantee in the run-up to the next council elections, this issue will rear its head again. I mean, without a doubt, there will be all sorts of people digging around trying to find, you know, some reform candidate who's, you know, at some point 20 years ago said something unpleasant.
When asked whether he opposed the union's motion, Daniel Kebby responded, "I think there are a lot of racists getting involved in reform." When pushed on whether that included Nigel Farage himself, he replied, "I think Nigel Farage is a right-wing populist." Farage responded without restraint. He fired back aggressively at Kebby's remarks, accusing him of driving political indoctrination in classrooms and warning that if Reform UK wins the next general election, the teaching unions will be in for a direct confrontation. Farage also labelled Daniel Kebby a septic Marxist and claimed he was actively helping to poison the minds of teenagers. In Farage's view, this goes beyond party politics. It's about the future of British children and the way they are taught to see their own country. He said, "This is someone who wants our children to be brainwashed into hating this country, its history, and everything it represents." Farage argued that pupils should be educated with balance and fairness, encouraged to think for themselves and free to reach their own conclusions. He added, "Don't impose ideology on them. The fight for the soul of Britain is nowhere near finished. Nigel Farage and Reform UK are standing their ground, and neither should you." If you enjoyed this political showdown, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more gripping political firestorms.